Go and live with that homeless man you love so much." The gate slammed behind her with a finality that sounded too loud for a Tuesday afternoon. Amara stood frozen for a moment, as if her brain needed time to catch up with her ears. Then she looked down. Her travel bag lay on the pavement, one side ripped open, clothes spilling out like a quiet humiliation. A single sandal hung off her swollen foot, the other lost in the shove. Dust clung to her wrapper. Her back ached. Her stomach, stretched and heavy with life, clenched painfully. But none of it compared to the cold, burning realization that she had just been thrown out. By her husband. Over a plate of food. One plate. One act of kindness. George's curses still echoed through the metal gate, like the last flares of a fire burning down a home. "You think this is a charity home? I work like a slave every day, and you're out here feeding a lazy beggar?" Amara couldn't answer. Her mouth was dry. Her knees gave way, and she crumpled onto the cement like a wilted leaf. She didn't cry. Not yet. A pair of worn, dusty shoes stepped into her field of vision. Her eyes rose slowly. Obina, the man with tired eyes and wild hair. The one who always said, "God bless you," like he meant it. He stood a few feet away, hesitant. Then, quietly, he stepped closer. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Amara whispered, her voice shaking. He hadn't eaten in days." "You did what your heart told you to do," Obina said softly, crouching beside her. She looked at him then, and for the first time, noticed something strange. His voice, it didn't sound like a man broken by the streets. It didn't tremble. It didn't beg. It carried a kind of still power, like someone who knew exactly who he was. He reached into the lining of his coat. She blinked. An iPhone. A real one. He tapped the screen with confident fingers and lifted the phone to his ear. "Yes, I'm ready. Bring the convoy to my location immediately." Convoy? Amara blinked again, certain she was hallucinating. Hunger? Stress? Early labor? Then she heard it, the low, luxurious rumble of engines in the distance. Within minutes, a line of black SUVs turned the corner, sleek and spotless like something out of a film. The kind of cars no one parked in their neighborhood. The gates swung open from the outside, something George's cheap lock had never been designed to do. Uniformed men with earpieces stepped out. One opened the door of the middle SUV and bowed. "We're here, sir." "Sir?" Amara's head turned slowly. Obina wasn't standing like a beggar anymore. He straightened his coat, dusted it off, and turned to her with eyes that had suddenly become very clear. "My name isn't just Obina," he said. "I'm Chief Obina Oki, CEO of O Holdings. Some call me the Kingmaker." She just stared. "I've made presidents," he said, "and helped build nations. But for the past few days, I was just a hungry man, and you fed me. With no questions. No expectations." Amara opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her world tilted, breath catching in her throat. Her belly tightened. Then, everything went dark. 7 days earlier. The scent of jollof rice and fried chicken filled the house, rich and warm like a memory. Amara stirred the pot gently, the wooden spoon moving in slow circles. Her belly strained against a wrapper. She was tired, not just physically, but soul-deep tired, the kind that came from years of walking on eggshells in her own home. George's footsteps came before his voice. "I've told you before, Amara. I don't want you giving food to strangers." She didn't turn. "He's not a stranger. You don't even know his name." "I don't need to. He's a human being." George scoffed, standing in the doorway with his arms crossed. "That's even worse. You don't know who he is, and you keep feeding him like he's family." Amara turned, wiping sweat from her brow. "My mother always said, 'Those who give never lack.' You never know who you're feeding." "Well, your mother's stories don't pay NEPA bills," George snapped. "And when I come home one day and find we've been robbed, or worse, what will your wisdom say then?" She didn't answer. She knew better than to fight him when he was already building his thundercloud. He stared at her for a long time, then turned and stormed off. Amara exhaled slowly. Minutes later, there were 3 soft taps at the side gate. She didn't hesitate. The food pack was already waiting. She scooped a generous portion, added the best piece of chicken, and walked quietly out. Obina was there, thin, barefoot, and grateful. He took the pack with shaking hands. "God bless you," he whispered. She smiled. He sat down on the sidewalk right there and started eating. No shame, no hesitation. Like this was the first warm meal he'd seen in weeks. Amara stood watching him, heart full. It was a strange joy, this peace from feeding someone else. A joy George would never understand. She turned to go back inside, and froze. George was standing by the kitchen window, watching everything. He didn't shout. Not then. Not yet. He waited until she came inside. "You did it again?" he asked, voice low. I just gave him some chicken." "My chicken." His voice exploded like a clap of thunder. "You gave that filthy beggar my chicken." "George, please." He was hungry. "I didn't mean to." "You dare disobey me in this house?" he bellowed, grabbing her arm. "I've had enough." "Please, George." "No. You're no longer my wife." "Out." I said out. Within seconds, he was in the bedroom, then back with her bag. He opened the gate, threw it out, and shoved her toward it. "Since you love that beggar so much, go and live with him." "George, please. I'm pregnant. I'm due any day." "You can't." "I don't care. Who even knows if the child's mine?" He shoved her hard. She stumbled. The gate slammed, and Amara stood outside, trembling, silent, too shocked to even scream. She sank to her knees, and then, from the corner of her vision, the man she had fed every day walked forward. And her life, her entire life, changed forever. When Amara opened her eyes, everything was too white. White walls, white curtains, white sheets that smelled faintly of lavender. For a moment, she wasn't sure she had died. Her mind floated, dazed, as if her soul had been peeled from reality and stitched into a dream. But then the pain returned, a dull throb in her lower back, the heavy pressure of her belly, the taste of pepper and dust still on her tongue. She was alive, and very much not in George's house anymore. "Good. You're awake," a soft voice said from beside her. Amara turned her head, slowly. A nurse in a crisp mint uniform stood with a tablet in one hand and a smile that didn't feel forced. "You fainted," she said kindly. "Exhaustion. Low blood sugar. But don't worry. Both you and the baby are doing fine." Amara blinked at her surroundings. The room was impossibly large. The bed had a headboard upholstered in white leather, and 4 bags hung beside her. A tray of fruits sat untouched nearby. There was no noise, no generators, no yelling, just air conditioning and silence. A luxury hospital suite. How? She sat up, wincing. Before she could gather her thoughts, the door opened. Chief Obina Oki walked in, no longer the dusty, tired man from the street. He was dressed in a deep navy blue kaftan embroidered with silver threads. Clean-shaven, hair neatly brushed. A man who belonged in boardrooms, not alleys. "Amara," he said calmly, stopping a few feet from the bed. "How are you feeling?" Her eyes widened. I don't understand. What is this? Where am I?" "You're safe," he replied. "You're my private medical suite in Lekki." She struggled to sit higher. Why? Why are you doing this? Who are you really?" He pulled a chair and sat beside her, his posture both regal and gentle. "My full name is Chief Obina Oki. I'm the CEO of O Holdings. People in certain circles call me the Kingmaker." He smiled faintly. "I've helped elect presidents. But lately, I've just been walking around, watching the world." Amara's voice cracked. "I don't understand. You were homeless." "I was," he said. "Not because I had no home, but because I chose to leave it. I needed to see if kindness still existed in the world. If people gave without expecting." Her eyes filled with tears again, but for a different reason now. I didn't do anything special." He looked at her gently. "That's where you're wrong. You gave me food. Your best food. You fed me while your husband yelled at you. You fed me when you had nothing to gain. That is the rarest thing in the world." Amara lowered her head. "I didn't think it mattered." "It mattered to me," he said quietly. "And now, everything that is mine, protection, comfort, opportunity, is also yours." The ride to the mansion was surreal. Amara sat in the back of a black SUV that looked like it had never touched dust. She was still wearing the same wrapper George had thrown her out in, still barefoot. Her hands cradled her stomach. Every bump in the road reminded her that this wasn't a dream. Beside her, Chief Oki sat calm, tapping a few messages into his phone. The car turned off the main road onto a private street lined with palm trees, marble fences, and flower beds trimmed by invisible gardeners. As they pulled into a vast, cream-colored compound, Amara gasped. The mansion was something from a magazine. Tall columns, green glass windows, a lion-shaped fountain roaring water into the air. The gates opened automatically. Uniformed guards saluted. Inside, maids are already waiting. One opened the car door. Another brought slippers. A third rolled out a wheelchair. "I can walk," Amara tried to protest, but a pain rippled through her belly and made her wince. "No, ma'am," one maid said gently. "From now on, you don't lift a finger. This is your home." "Home?" Amara echoed. "What do you mean home?" Chief Oki stepped forward. "As long as you want it to be, you and the child you carry will never lack again." She was wheeled through vast marble corridors, past walls covered in art, chandeliers glittering like fallen stars, and rooms that smelled like roses and vanilla. When she reached her new bedroom, she gasped again. Velvet curtains, a queen-size bed, a balcony overlooking a private garden. She sat on the edge of the bed and couldn't move. She couldn't cry either. Not yet. Her mind was still catching up. That night, as warm water filled a marble bathtub and staff prepared her first real dinner in days, Amara stared at herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman looking back. Tired, hollow-eyed, and somehow alive. 2 weeks later, her son was born. Labor was fast, intense, but managed with grace. A private doctor, 2 midwives, a team of specialists. She didn't even need to scream. The pain was managed before it peaked. When they handed her the baby, her breath caught. A boy, soft brown eyes, a head full of dark hair, 10 perfect fingers. Warm skin pressed her chest. She named him Samuel. It meant God has heard. George never called. Not once. Amara learned from a neighbor that he had married someone else, a woman from his office. The wedding was small and quick. The gossip spread fast. Some pitied her. Some mocked her. But Amara didn't feel bitterness, just distance. One day, while feeding Sam in the garden, she said softly, "You'll never beg for love." Not like I did. 1 month later, Chief Oki invited her for a walk. The evening breeze was warm. Birds chirped lazily in the trees. Sam lay sleeping in a designer stroller, wrapped in soft linen. "I still can't believe all of this," she said, her fingers brushing the stroller's handle. Chief Oki chuckled. "Life turns when we least expect it." He paused near the fountain and nodded to someone standing by the gate. A tall young man in a tailored suit stepped forward. "Meet my son," the chief said. "Jonathan, just returned from France." Jonathan smiled and extended his hand. "I've heard a lot about you, Amara." She blushed. "Hopefully only the good parts." He laughed. "Only the brave parts." He bent slightly to peek into the stroller. "And this must be Sam." Amara smiled. "He's my whole world." Jonathan looked up. "He's beautiful." Chief Oki's eyes twinkled. "Jonathan is also managing director of my companies." "Amara, you said you studied economics, right?" Amara nodded, unsure. "Yes, I graduated top of my class, but I never had a chance to use it." "You will now," Chief Oki said. "You'll start at the office next week." Amara blinked. "Me?" Jonathan smiled. "You'll be working directly with me. We don't waste talent in this house." Tears rose to her eyes. For the first time in a very long time, someone believed in her without asking for proof. That night, as she tucked Sam into his crib, Amara stood at the balcony overlooking the mansion garden. She heard music playing faintly from the staff quarters. Wind whispered through the trees. A scent of night jasmine lingered in the air. She had been thrown out like trash. But life had scooped her up like treasure. And the story, she knew, was only beginning. 2 years later, the woman who once stirred jollof barefoot now sat behind a glass desk on the 14th floor of a skyscraper in Victoria Island. Amara Okoye, executive director of O Holdings. The title plate gleamed beside a trio of framed photos. One of her holding baby Sam, one of her and Chief Oki on her first day at the company, and one of her team outside the Lagos headquarters, half smiling, half awestruck. She wasn't just working. She was leading. Reports, forecasts, economic projections. These were her tools now. The same hands that once shook while feeding a stranger were now signing off millionaire contracts. But power hadn't changed her. She still walked softly. She still said, "Please," to every staff member, even the janitor who mopped her office floor every Friday evening. She remembered being unseen, unheard, and she would never become the person who forgot. There was, however, one thing that had changed. Jonathan. He knocked before entering, always. "Ready for the press briefing?" he asked, holding a neatly bound folder. She looked up. "Just about. Is my lipstick smeared?" He smirked. "Still perfect." Their eyes met, just long enough for silence to say what neither of them had yet dared to. Working side by side for 2 years had built something between them. Not fireworks, not instantly, but trust, respect, that rare, magnetic comfort that only grows from time and sincerity. He never pressured, never crossed the line, never treated her like she owed him something for her position. He just saw her, every time, and slowly she saw him back. It was after a shareholders' gala, beneath cherry blossoms in the company garden, that he proposed. She cried, said yes before he finished the sentence. Chief Oki clapped like a happy child when he heard. My two favorite people. Finally, the wedding was the event of the year. A sea of dignitaries, business moguls, celebrities. Media drones buzzed overhead. The bride, once abandoned on the street, walked down the aisle in a gown hand-stitched with South African diamonds. Her veil shimmered in the evening sun, and waiting for her at the altar was the man she once fed on the street, now her father-in-law. When Jonathan kissed her, fireworks lit the sky. Amara thought, maybe this is what it feels like when life finally says, well done. But fate wasn't finished with her yet. 12 years later, Amara and Jonathan sat in the back seat of a black executive SUV, laughing as their driver navigated the city's chaotic traffic. Sam's high school graduation. He was 17 now, tall, sharp jawline, a quiet, focused mind like his stepfather, a calm heart like his mother. He had just received a scholarship to study medicine in the UK. The car was filled with celebration, plans, joy. Then Amara's phone rang. She smiled and picked it up without looking. Seconds later, her face changed. She froze. "Amara?" Jonathan asked, sensing it instantly. "What's wrong?" Her voice cracked. "It's Sam." Jonathan's head whipped around. "What about him?" "He's been kidnapped." Jonathan slammed the brakes. The car jerked violently to the side of the road. Amara's phone slipped from her trembling hands. She gasped. "It's George," she whispered. "He took Sam." Jonathan grabbed the phone. A message had just arrived. "You can't hide him from me anymore. He's my son. I've taken him. You'll never see him again. George." For a moment, time froze. Jonathan's hands clenched the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "He what?" he growled. "He vanished for 12 years, and now he comes back and steals your child." Amara stared blankly at the dashboard. "Sam doesn't even know him. He was just a baby when George threw us out. He's never seen him." Jonathan was already dialing the chief security director. "I want roadblocks. Lock down all major exits near the school. Get plate numbers, security footage, anything. I want that car intercepted. If needed, get helicopters. We're not losing him." "Yes, sir," came the officer's urgent reply. Jonathan turned to Amara. "Do you remember the vehicle?" Amara shook her head, then paused. "Wait. Cynthia." She saw it. She mentioned the color. Something about the plate. Jonathan called home. "Put Cynthia on the line," he said. Their 10-year-old daughter sounded scared, but clear. "Daddy, it was a black SUV. The number plate started with KRD 411. It went toward the express road, the side with the big orange billboard. That's all I need, baby. You did great." An hour later, at a federal checkpoint near the interstate bridge, officers stopped a black SUV matching the description. The driver wore dark shades. In the passenger seat sat George. Older now, still wearing arrogance like cologne. In the back seat, Sam sat with his arms folded tightly across his chest. "Is there a problem, officer?" George asked smoothly. "Yes," the lead officer said. "We have an alert on this vehicle. Please step out. I'm his father, George barked. I have a right to take my own son. Sam's voice sliced through the moment. You're not my father, he said. The officers blinked. I don't know you, Sam said louder. I've never seen you before in my life. George froze. The door opened. Officers helped Sam out. Are you Samuel Okoye? Yes, sir. Did you come with this man willingly? No. He lied. Said there was an emergency and my mom sent him. The handcuffs clicked around George's wrists before he could speak again. Back at the mansion, Amara saw the black federal vehicle pull up. She didn't wait. She ran. Sam jumped from the car, his backpack falling to the ground, and ran into her arms. I thought I lost you, Amara sobbed. You'll never lose me, Mom, he whispered. Jonathan stepped forward and placed a hand on Sam's shoulder. Sam looked up and smiled. Thank you, Dad. Amara's heart swelled. Cynthia burst from the house moments later, crying as she wrapped her arms around her brother. I told you you'd come back. They laughed through the tears. A week later, the case hit national headlines. Footage showed George being led away in cuffs. Former co-workers were stunned. Old neighbors remembered the man who'd once stood at the gate, yelling at his pregnant wife. The court found him guilty on multiple counts: child abduction, abandonment, false identity usage, psychological harm. He was sentenced to 5 years. No parole. Amara didn't attend the trial. Neither did Sam. When asked why, she simply said, "We've already moved on." The applause from Sam's graduation still echoed in Amara's ears. Her son, Dr. Samuel Okoye, best graduating medical student in Nigeria. He had stood on that university stage like he was born for it. Cameras flashed. Dignitaries shook his hand. The president himself sent a letter of congratulations. She had clapped until her palms tingled, her eyes wet with pride. Beside her, Jonathan whistled like a proud schoolboy. Cynthia recorded every moment. Hope, her newly discovered daughter, stood silently, hand pressed to her chest, whispering prayers only a motherless child could understand. Sam had stepped to the podium, smiling faintly. I want to thank my mother, Amara, he said, for teaching me that kindness is never weakness, that helping someone, even when it costs you, can change everything. Then he turned slightly toward Jonathan. And to my dad, the man who stepped in when someone else stepped out. You taught me strength, discipline, love. I wouldn't be standing here without you. The room erupted, but not every room was filled with joy. In a cramped apartment across town, George sat in a plastic chair, eyes hollow, watching the speech on a flickering TV. He didn't touch his food. He didn't blink. When Sam said the words, "my dad," George lowered his head and cried. Not because Sam was great, but because George wasn't part of his story. A week later, in the mansion's reading room, Chief Obina was flipping through a worn leather journal when a maid entered. Sir, this arrived. No return address. From Madame Amara. The envelope was plain. Handwritten. Unmarked. He frowned and handed it to a guard. Take this to her. Amara sat in her study, her fingers curled around a cup of hibiscus tea. Sam was beside her, scribbling notes for a medical journal. Cynthia played the piano in the next room, the soft melody floating through the marble hall. Mom, Sam said, handing her the envelope. This just came. She opened it casually, but by the time she read the first line, her fingers froze. She didn't speak, just stared. Sam noticed the shift. Mom! Jonathan walked in, a glass of orange juice in one hand. Everything okay? She handed him the letter. As he read aloud, the room grew still. To Amara, if you're reading this, then it means I can no longer carry this burden in silence. What I'm about to reveal is something I should have told you years ago. But I was too ashamed, too afraid. Sam is not your only child. Before I threw you out, I received a letter. An anonymous one. It said you had a child before we got married, a daughter, and that you'd hidden her because she wasn't mine. I didn't ask you. I went straight to your aunt. She confirmed it. Said you'd had the child during university and she'd sent her to an orphanage. Said you were too young to raise her. That's when I stopped loving you. That's why I said what I said when I pushed you out. A month ago, I got another letter from someone claiming to be your daughter. Her name is Hope. She said she has proof. DNA results. Photos. She's alive. And she's looking for you. I didn't know how to face you. But you deserve the truth. I'm sorry. George. Silence followed. Amara's breath caught in her throat. A daughter, she whispered. No, I never had. Sam stood up, stunned. What does he mean? Amara shook her head. I don't remember. I was never pregnant before you. Never. I would have known. Her voice trembled. But there was that time in university. I collapsed. They said it was malaria. I was sick for months. I went back home, but I don't remember anything clearly. I was out of it. Disoriented. My aunt took care of me. Chief Obina sat quietly, eyes narrowed. Your aunt. The one who raised you after your mother passed. Amara nodded. Aunt Philomena. Very strict. Always said I was too soft-hearted. She hated when I gave to beggars. Said kindness would break me. Jonathan's voice was firm. What if she hid the pregnancy from you? What if she made that decision for you, without you ever knowing? Amara looked at her husband, then her son. What do I do? Sam answered before anyone else could. We find her, Mom. We don't wait. We find her. 2 weeks of searching. Chief Oki's network moved fast. Investigators, digital records, orphanage archives, old hospital logs. Finally, a name surfaced. Hope Chisamamcha. She had visited a Lagos DNA center twice in the last 6 months. Mother's name listed, Amara. Birth date matched. Born during Amara's university break. Now 24 years old. A law graduate. Legal advisor at a youth advocacy NGO. Amara held the printout like it was made of glass. She's real, she whispered. They arranged the meeting at a quiet garden cafe in Ikoyi. Amara wore a simple white dress. Jonathan held her hand until she stepped out of the car. Sam stayed close, eyes alert. Hope was already seated. Long curly hair. Wide, searching eyes. A posture that said both confidence and caution. As Amara walked up, Hope stood. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. Then Hope whispered, Mom. Amara collapsed. Hope caught her. They clung to each other like time itself had stitched them back together. I didn't know, Amara sobbed. I swear to you, I didn't know. I know, Hope whispered. I found out everything. From a distance, Sam watched. She looks like Mom, he said. She is her, Jonathan replied quietly. 6 months later, Hope moved into the mansion. Cynthia finally had a big sister. Sam, a twin in spirit. Amara, the joy of reunion she never dared hope for. Hope helped expand Chief Oki's foundation, using her law degree to rescue trafficked girls and wrongfully imprison women. At night, Amara would sit in the garden, watching her children talk and laugh under the stars. Sometimes, she touched her stomach and whispered, Thank you, God, for giving them back to me. 1 year later, Amara stood on stage at a national awards ceremony honoring women in leadership. Lights flashed. The crowd was filled with ministers, business leaders, ambassadors. Behind her stood Hope, Sam, Cynthia, Jonathan, and Chief Oki. She looked out over the sea of faces. I was once thrown out of my house, she said, for feeding a hungry man. A man I didn't know was a billionaire. I was abandoned, pregnant, alone. She smiled faintly. But today, I don't stand here as a victim. I stand as proof that kindness is never wasted. It always returns, folded into blessings, multiplied beyond imagination. Thunderous applause. In his apartment, George watched the ceremony in silence. He closed his eyes. I had gold in my house, he whispered, and I threw it away. But something else weighed on him now. Something deeper, something buried, a secret he thought he could live with. But it was rising, and when it surfaced, it would change everything. It was a quiet Sunday when the letter arrived. The sun hung lazily over the mansion, casting soft golden shadows across the polished floor. Amara was reading beside the window, sipping lemon tea, her legs tucked under a velvet throw. Sam was in the next room, working on research notes for a medical journal. Cynthia was at the piano again, the same soft melody she always played when she wanted peace. Then the knock came. A maid stepped in, head slightly bowed. Madam, this letter was delivered by hand. No return address. Amara took it with mild curiosity until she saw the handwriting. George. The world shifted under her feet. She walked slowly to her study, closed the door, and opened the envelope with trembling fingers. A single page. Neat. Written carefully, as if the weight of the words had taken days to arrange. As she read, her breath caught. To Amara, if you're reading this, it means I can no longer carry this secret alone. What I'm about to say should have been said long ago. Before I threw you out. Before I turned my back on the only real thing I ever had. Sam is not your only child. Before we married, I received a letter. Anonymous. It claimed you had a child during university, a daughter, and that you hid her because she wasn't mine. I didn't ask you. I went to your aunt instead. She confirmed it. Said you collapsed during school. That you were sick, out of touch, unaware. She claimed she'd given the child away. That you were too young to raise a baby. I believed her. I never told you. I just stopped loving you. That's when my cruelty began. That's why I pushed you out. But last month, another letter arrived. This time from a woman claiming to be your daughter. Her name is Hope. She had DNA proof. Photos. I've met her. She's real. I couldn't carry it anymore. I'm sorry I buried this secret. I'm sorry I punished you for something you didn't know. You didn't deserve it. Please forgive me. Or at least, please find her. George. The paper slid from her hands. Amara sat back, stunned. A daughter? The air in the room grew thin. Jonathan walked in just as her teacup hit the saucer with a faint clink. What happened? She handed him the letter without speaking. He read it in silence. Then read it again. When he looked up, his face was tight. He knew and never told you. Amara whispered, but I was never pregnant. I would have known. Jonathan knelt beside her. Do you remember anything from that time? She stared ahead, trying to pull memory from fog. I got sick. During school. Really sick. They said it was malaria. I collapsed, woke up confused. My aunt took me home. I lost months. I was weak, disoriented. Jonathan's voice was low. What if it wasn't malaria? What if you were pregnant? And she hid it from you? Amara's hand flew to her chest. Mine always said I was too soft. Too kind. She called it a flaw. What if she decided I couldn't raise a child? And just made the decision for me? Jonathan took her hands. Then we find her. We find your daughter. Sam had walked in, reading the letter behind them. He didn't speak. He just stood by the door, quiet, eyes wide. I'll help, he said softly. Let's bring her home. 2 weeks of searching. Chief O'Bina spared no resource. Private investigators, old orphanage records, hospital archives, government contacts. They traced abandoned birth records. Searched DNA center logs. And then, a match. Hope Chisholm Aimcha. Age, 24. Law graduate. Legal advisor at a youth NGO. Had visited a Lagos DNA center twice, looking for her biological mother. Mother's name, Amara. When Amara saw the file, she didn't cry. She wept. I didn't even know she existed, she whispered. But I missed her every day. They arranged a meeting at a quiet garden cafe in Ikoyi. Amara wore a simple white dress. Jonathan stayed in the car. Sam waited nearby, hidden, watching. Hope sat alone at a table by the fountain. Long curly hair. A face that mirrored Amara's younger self. Not perfectly, but unmistakably. She held a cup of tea, but barely touched it. Amara approached slowly. Hope stood when their eyes met. Mom, she said softly. Amara's knees buckled. Hope rushed forward and caught her in an embrace that melted every missing year. They didn't speak. They just held each other like the world had stopped turning. And maybe, for a moment, it had. I didn't know, Amara sobbed. I swear I didn't. I believe you, Hope whispered. I read everything. I found George. He told me the truth. From a distance, Sam whispered, she looks just like her. Jonathan nodded. She is her. Hope moved into the mansion within a month. Not as a guest, but as family. Cynthia called her sister from day one. Sam shared old photos, inside jokes, and even his best reading chair. Jonathan welcomed her without hesitation. But it was Amara who changed the most. She smiled more now, laughed louder, slept better. A piece of her had returned. A piece she hadn't even known was missing. Hope brought more than answers. She brought purpose. Using her legal skills, she helped expand the foundation Chief O'Bina once built in secret. They rescued trafficked girls, offered free legal aid to women in prisons, and passed bills for juvenile reform. Hope became a name people recognized and respected. Sam rose quickly in medicine. By age 23, he had completed a 10-hour brain surgery no other surgeon dared attempt. He was awarded the National Medal of Honor by the president himself. Newspapers called him the Miracle Hands of Nigeria. At the televised awards ceremony, he looked directly into the camera. "I dedicate this to my mother, Amara," he said, "who taught me that kindness is strength." He turned toward Jonathan, "And to the man who raised me, my father in every way that matters." Amara cried quietly in the front row. George, watching alone from a small room across town, did too. Tears of regret. Not because Sam was great, but because George would never be a part of his story. Later that month, George called. Amara answered. "I needed to tell you something," he said. "Hope is mine. I did a test. She's my daughter too." Silence. "I knew," he added, "before I threw you out. I suspected, but I didn't tell you. I thought if I punished you, it would make me feel less ashamed." She didn't shout. She didn't forgive, but she listened. "Thank you," she said simply, and hung up. 1 year later, Amara stood on a national stage again, not for an award, but for a legacy. Surrounded by her family, Hope in her legal robe, Sam in his white coat, Cynthia in her school uniform, Jonathan at her side, Chief Obina smiling with hands folded. She took the microphone. "I was once thrown out for feeding a stranger. That act of kindness could have ended me." She paused, "But it saved me. That man became my father-in-law. My son became a doctor. My daughter, a lawyer. My husband, my anchor. And me? I became the woman my mother always prayed I'd be." The crowd rose in standing ovation. Later that night, in a tiny apartment with peeling paint and a flickering TV, George watched in silence. He reached for an old photo, Amara, smiling beside him on their wedding day. Younger, unbroken. "I had gold," he whispered, "and I threw it away." His voice cracked, "And now the world sees it shine."